We hope you enjoy Elliotte and the Keators on 32 Thoughts, the podcast.
Sounds like a band name.
Elliotte and the Keators.
They do bluegrass music. That's Elliotte plays the banjo.
Elliott's on the banjo. One night only at the Orion's Folk Festival. Welcome to 32 Thoughts, the podcast presented by your Canadian Toyota dealers and the 2026 Tacoma. It's time to Toyota. Boy, that off-season sure flew by, didn't it? What are we, barely a week plus after dropping the big 4+ hour finale? We're back already. Trust us, we are more than sick of each other, and we promise we would not interrupt your own summer activities without good reason. This is a special emergency interview pod. I'm sure you've heard by now the Ducks did in fact match the Flyers' 5-year, $90 million offer sheet to ensure that Leo Carlsson remained a Duck. So Pat Verbeek said it was surprising to say the least when he first heard those numbers that the Flyers threw at Carlsson. So today, you're going to hear Elliotte's conversation with two people very involved in that whole process. Carlsson's representation, the father-son duo of Matt and Ryan Keator. Matt's been around the game, especially a long, long time. How surprised were they when they heard what Philly was willing to offer? You'll get that answer and plenty more about the inner workings of a contract that has effectively changed everything on the business side. We hope you enjoy Elliotte and the Keators on 32 Thoughts, the podcast.
All right, so gentlemen, since this is audio only, and I don't want to be constantly introducing both of you because it's bad for flow, I don't think the listeners would like that very much. I felt the best way to start would be for the listeners to get used to your respective voices. So, Matt, why don't you introduce yourself first so the listeners know exactly what you sound like?
So, I'm Matt Keator. I'm going into my 37th year in NHL circles. I worked for 8 years, first 8 years of my career as a scout with the St. Louis Blues, traveling all over the world, Sweden in particular, which we'll discuss some on this podcast. And the last 29, going into my 29th year in the agent business. So been doing this a long time.
Yeah. And I'm Ryan Keator. I'm Matt's son. I'm 27 years old. I'm on year 2, so not the same rap sheet as Matt, but I went to Boston College for 4 years, worked there under Jerry York, and he hired me. So here now.
He just did his master's in sports management at Boston College. So he is a double eagle. We'll give him some credit there.
There we go.
So Ryan, did you always want to work for your dad? Was this something that you thought you were going to do?
Yeah, I always wanted to, like, kind of growing up, right? I was always kind of doing player comps for him, doing team research, doing no trade lists, things like that since I was in high school. And I've always loved the game and everything else. And I did video at Boston College, me and my buddy Cam Wolbach, who now works for the Bruins organization. And then after that, I actually worked in tech sales, but I was still doing work for Matt after that. And then 2 years ago, he brought me.
It was a rigorous interview process. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's introduce Leo Carlsson. When did he become your client? Any player who's the second overall pick in the draft and has his talent, there's probably a lot of people who want to represent him. So how did the Keators become Leo Carlsson's representatives?
So years back, probably 8-9 years ago, I got a call from Zdeno Chara, who one of his best friends in the world is a guy by the name of Radek Hammer, who played for the Ottawa Senators years ago. And Radek's a Czech, but he's based in Sweden, in Karlstad, Sweden. And Z said, hey, he's one of my best friends. He's a great person. He's in the agent business. He wants to talk to you about affiliating. I was skeptical at best, but the minute I started talking to Radek, I loved him. He had the same values and beliefs as we did. I met his partner, Marcus Isaacson, who's been an agent over there for 20 plus years and has done a tremendous job over there negotiating contracts. And the two of them are a great team together. And I think we just found a lot of shared values and beliefs. I traveled to Sweden a lot. I actually played professionally over there for a year. So I knew the culture, and these guys had this basically the same type of firm over there as us. It's we both have boutique firms, less clients, better service, it being all about the relationship and returning phone calls and texts right away. We just don't believe in kind of the big firm approach, if you will, of bringing 20, 30, 40 kids to the draft every year. And, we just wanted to keep it small, and we kind of target kind of non-elitist parents and players who focus on training and personal development rather than a social media post or, hey, can you get me concert tickets? I don't want to hear that. It's about when's your next training session, and it's really more, it's a blue collar approach that these guys have. And we align so well that we adopted their name. We stole their name, Win Hockey. So they were Win Hockey Agency in Sweden. I think for us to be fully aligned, we took their name and we adopted it here. And now we're all under kind of one umbrella, two agencies with the same values under one umbrella. And that's kind of led us to a number of Swedish players and Leo in particular.
Yeah. And for me, I actually met Leo. My first time meeting him in person was the 2023 draft. And I wasn't working for my dad yet, but I came because I just wanted to see how it operated. And we had Ryan Leonard too, who I love. But for Leo, it was funny. Like, he kept asking me about Columbus because Leo was slotted to go third overall. And it was interesting to me just talking to him about, the different organizations. The kid really wanted to learn. Like, he was very interested in learning about the cities and the teams and everything like that. So I really enjoyed my time with him there.
Yeah, that's our big thing, is developing them as businessmen, and that's where it started right at the draft. I think Leo figured that out right away. You know,
Can you tell more about that when you're talking about developing a player as a businessman? What do you guys mean by that?
by that, I mean that process for us starts right when we start working with a player. Letting them understand what the draft's all about, letting them understand and being a part of a contract negotiation. You know, and understanding the dynamics of the hockey industry. Because in the end, like, they're the ones who have to make decisions along with us every step of the way. So that process begins before the draft, even, as you go into the draft and after the draft. So what Ryan was referencing, more of like, we Leo is inquisitive right away about the draft and the process, and he's kind of kept that nature kind of all the way along, which has kind of led us into contract negotiations and where we are now.
Okay, so by the way, Matt did mention Zdeno Chara there. Matt represented Zdeno Chara. He's doing this interview with a Zdeno Chara jersey over his shoulder in his home office.
He's a
And
captain of Win Hockey.
yeah, and so let's just quickly, Matt, where you're going out to Slovakia for his final skate. When is that?
He's got his final skate, they call it. It's a charity game. I think it's on August 21st. And I think Z is going to let me coach one of the teams. And Radek Hammer, the Hammer, is going to play in the game, apparently. So I can't wait to get video of that. And it's going to be a great occasion. I think the arena is sold out in Trenchant. And it's the Pavel Dimitra Arena, which is great because I represented Pavel too, for a part of his career. No, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's been a big year for Z, and he's earned everything he's gotten.
Yes, he sure has. Okay, so you talked about Leo Carlsson and business. So where I wanted to start was, obviously, since the offer sheet was signed on July 3rd, it has been the talk of the league. It has been the number one topic about Leo Carlsson's offer sheet with Philly and eventually being matched by Anaheim. And I wanted to kind of go back to September. Pat Verbeek, when he spoke to the media after the Ducks matched, he said that the Ducks had made a fair market offer in around September. Now, I haven't spoken to Pat, but I've spoken to a bunch of people, and what I understand is about the time they signed Jackson Lacombe, which was 8 times 9 at that time the richest deal in Anaheim history, that the Ducks had made an offer to Leo Carlsson in the 8 times 10.5 range, which, as we know now, wasn't going to get it done, but it was more of a fair market offer. Where people have really credited you, and some teams begrudgingly, I will say, have really credited you, is that you two, Matt and Ryan, you saw something in the market that I don't know a lot of other people believed was going to happen. So can you you get that offer from the Ducks, and then take us through what you started to think and why at that time that wasn't the right offer for Leo?
So listen, there's always been a partnership with the Ducks, talking about everything. Everything's been up front, obviously, from day one with them. They've been great. It's an offer that we're quick to turn down right away. And it wasn't for their lack of trying. It's just we needed time to kind of figure out the marketplace and where the marketplace was going. And they were tenacious. They were after us on it through September and October, and we used that September-October time to kind of do more research.
Yeah, and I think for us, I kind of took the lead on the market research aspect of it, right? Whether it was looking at comps, percentage of the cap, as well as looking at equivalent value of a contract done up to about 10 years ago to now, including future, right? What have guys signed for and what are they going to be getting in later years? The other big thing I was looking at was the cap going up. Obviously, COVID hit and there was a flat cap, and now we're seeing the boom after that. And it was at this time we were trying to wrap our heads around these numbers. Like, for example, from the 2023 to 24 season to the 2028-29 season, we're going to see around a 40% increase in cap. Like, those are astronomical numbers. And we just didn't want to jump on something right away.
Yeah, I mean, you could see that this market shift going on. And, we got into November, and, the Ducks obviously wanted to keep talking. And honestly, it was our decision not to get into it with them at that point because we wanted to meet with Leo and his family. And we, basically we met with them and went over the marketplace. Ryan put together a fancy slideshow he's all proud of. That basically educates. Our job as agents is to educate our client and their families so that we can all make informed decisions. And what we didn't want to have happen was we didn't want Leo to sign a contract that he would regret in relation to the marketplace in later years. Now, listen, $80 million is a lot of money. We understand that. We get that. But we're living in a marketplace, and we're operating within the NHL marketplace. And every contract that a player signs affects others around him.
Yeah.
And you have to be cognizant of that, right? And
I think also really quickly for us, we were still trying to figure out what Leo was as a player. He was 20 at the time, then had turned 21. So still seeing that growth from him throughout the whole year too had us a little bit hesitant to a longer term deal.
yeah,
At that time.
And again, that was our decision. You're gonna hear me say this, our decision, not the Ducks. They were definitely very tenacious on us and talking to us. I think the Ducks, there was a quote from Pat in January where we tabled, negotiations for now. Again, so the boys could focus on the season, which really, after that point, we didn't talk to Leo at all about any contract stuff. I think we all agreed that his focus should be on playing, and on the team. Again, that was our decision not to pursue things until after the season. We needed to kind of I think they didn't waver on that, Leo or his family, because I think they trusted us and they trusted our research and the direction that we were going.
And the slideshow.
Obviously, which was great. So, so we waited till after the season.
Okay, a couple of questions out of that, because I think people want to know how a relationship works between an agent and a family. Like, every agent will tell you that there are deals they love that they did, and every agent will tell you there's sometimes they've done a deal where they're not thrilled about it, but that's what the client wanted. Ultimately, who makes the call here? Is it the two of you and say, Leo, this is not the right deal for you? Or does Leo and his family make the call? Who makes the decision?
I think it's in the end, Leo's the one in charge, and we have to empower him to be in charge with as much information as possible that we can provide for him. Like in November, we were at that point, and everyone has a different aversion to risk. I think Leo's very confident in his abilities. I think he's very calm and cool under pressure. I always say about Leo, he's ordering a martini when the plane goes down. There's no panic in his game on the ice or off the ice. And frankly, when we made the decision to kind of table it till after the season, Leo didn't look back. He said, "Okay, I'm going to play hockey." And obviously, he got injured a little bit through it, which happens, and rebounded from that very well. The Ducks were great partners with us during the season. Their sports science department, their player development is top 5 in the NHL. And they got him healthy and got him where he needed to be for playoffs, where he played very well. And we went through the season. And so there was no looking back on our part that way.
Did you ever doubt? I mean, it seems like a stupid question to ask now, knowing what happened. But in the middle of all this, did you ever doubt your plan? Did you ever waver that this was the right path?
No, not at all. Because we believed in him as a player, and we believed that in the direction his career was going as he was evolving. And I think we're all of the mind that we have to wait till after the season and then assess kind of where we're at. And that's what we did. We got in after the season. We got to that point, and then we did another assessment then.
Yeah. I think what really helped us with that too is Leo didn't waver either, right? Like even he got hurt, he was injured for a little bit, but he was very, cool, calm, collected through the whole thing, which obviously makes our job a lot easier.
How often did Pat Verbeek keep coming back to you? Like, how often did he try to say, "Let's get back to the table," or did he change his offers? Like, how often are you getting the calls from the team?
Well, no, I mean, I think after, it was off the table in January in terms of like fielding offers and doing it, but we kept talking. We were still talking on a regular basis, and they were great. They were great about it. Let's let the kid play, and he was plenty aggressive. The Ducks were aggressively trying to sign Leo all the way along. They're doing their job. That's their job. If anything, we didn't allow them to do their job because we weren't engaging because, we wanted to get to after the season and and have our postseason meeting with Leo.
Okay, so one of the things that everybody knows about is there's Connor Bedard, there's Adam Fantilli, there's Macklin Celebrini, there's Will Smith. There's a whole bunch of players here. Newport represents Bedard, Pat Brisson represents Fantilli and Celebrini, Cortex has Will Smith. The agenting business is a tough, nasty business. How often do you guys compare notes? How often do you talk to other agents to say, "Hey, we're doing this with Leo Carlsson. What are you doing with Celebrini, or what are you doing with Bedard?" Does that happen?
I've been, like I said, I've been doing it for a long time, and you get the occasional phone call from an agent saying, "Hey, how are you doing with this guy or that guy?" In this case, I'd run into some of the Newport guys up at the draft combine, and we had chatted once or twice maybe about where he's at with Connor. They're basically two separate. We looked on they're two separate negotiations. It seemed to me that they were all doing the same as us. They're trying to figure out where the market's going. And I think that's important.
Did you have any prediction on who would go first or where Leo would go? Did you think about that at all?
Yeah, so we basically we got to after the season. Okay, the season ended, and obviously the Ducks were in touch right away, and they were aggressively like they have been. They were doing their job. We wanted Leo to get a little time off after the season, and then we had our meeting in June with Leo and his family, where we went back over the marketplace. Ryan got to give his fancy presentation again. And, at that point we had identified that we felt the key comparable was Connor Bedard. And we wanted our plan was to wait and see where he ended up, in his negotiation, and probably negotiate from there. We'll let Bedard set the market, and then we'll negotiate from there. That was our plan. And we figured by September, we'd fly out to California and get a deal done. And, be ready for camp. I think that, Leo's big thing was to avoid any holdouts situation or avoid missing camp at all, like most players. And I think that that's fair. We obviously there was a potential for an offer sheet because it's written into the CBA. Like the CBA, part of the CBA is that restricted free agents, a mechanism available for restricted free agents is the ability to get an offer sheet from a team. And we knew there was, that on June 30th, that was out there for us. I think before June 30th, every season, like the hockey media, you included, agents and even teams, GMs will ask if anyone thinks, it's shop talk really, that you think an offer sheet will happen. Will there be offer sheets this summer? But our feeling was that the highest offer sheet in history was under $10 million in AAV, annual value. And with the cap going up so much that we just felt it was a slim chance of it. And that's not something we were planning on at all. Our focus was on Bedard and seeing where that goes. And we told the Ducks that, mid-June, we just said, hey, we've done a lot of research on the market. We've talked to them about the market, where we think it's going. And, we want to wait and see where Bedard ends up. And then basically negotiate from there. And again, they were doing their job. It was us, saying no to really negotiating at that point, because we did want to see what Connor was going to get.
So, Ryan, I'm curious. You did your first slideshow earlier in the year. You did another one with Leo after the season. Yes. How much did your numbers change from, say, September, October to April, May, June?
For me, honestly, the numbers really didn't change that much, just because nothing had really gotten done at that point in terms of the big players that we were looking at. I think our meeting in June was more just to kind of recap where we were. It was a lot of the same that we had discussed in November.
But it allowed us also to narrow in on Connor.
Yes.
Because we could see Connor's, like I told you, you want to see how a player evolves over the course of the season and what direction they're headed. And based on Leo's season and his numbers, his offensive numbers are close to Bedard in those terms, but they're different style of players. But we felt there was that was our comp. So that's really allowed us to kind of do that.
Yeah.
So and I think that was important, and that's what we were waiting for.
Okay, June 30th. Now teams are allowed to talk to restricted free agents. They can't do an offer sheet till July 1st, but they can legally talk to them on June 30th. How long after 12:01 a.m. on June 30th did your phone first ping?
Well, I was asleep, but I woke up in the morning to see that at 12:04 there was a text from a team saying, "Hey, are you up? Let's talk."
How could you go to sleep on June 30th before midnight?
I wasn't expecting it. We weren't expecting it, But we had 7 or 8 teams inquire that day, and four teams were ready to make offers, pretty right away. They wanted to be in the mix, and we were blown away by it a bit.
Yeah.
And we kind of narrowed it down to 2 teams, which we thought. We did have discussions with the Ducks that day and said this could be coming into play. But on July 1st, we sent Leo the contract offer in writing, and he was speechless. I think he was overwhelmed by the structure, how it was front loaded, almost all in signing bonus. And frankly, that makes a huge difference when you're making that decision, because that's upfront money. That's money in your pocket with compound interest. The value is even greater. And, I think the offer that he received was something that in the end, I think he and his family couldn't refuse. And, like The Godfather, I made him an offer he couldn't refuse. And I think that's what they felt that way. And that had nothing to do with the Ducks. It was just, again, they were aggressive throughout. But in the end, I think it was just something that they couldn't turn down. And, our discussions and email with Anaheim, we're going to keep private. I don't think we want to go through that. I don't think that's fair to them. But again, this was our, it's on us. It's our decision in terms of that. And nothing Anaheim did could have prevented, Philadelphia from making that offer, but they made it. And there were others too that were ready to make it. But, I think, we got through that time period and we waited all the way till July 3rd. It was open for acceptance at noon on July 1st, but we wanted to give it time. And July 3rd, I think, Leo and his family didn't want to lose out on this opportunity. And I think we just made the decision to move forward. And, the Ducks, Leo, when the offer sheet came across, Leo's teammates were very excited for him. Everybody called him. I think even after the season was over, teammates were like, Leo, go do the best you can. We'll adjust to whatever number you get. And, I think all of the players were aware that their personal situations could change based on the contract Leo gets. I've been in regular touch with Chris Kreider and Alex Killorn.
Yep.
They realize their situations could change, but they also
should clarify the Keators represent those two players in the Ducks.
Yeah, we do. Yep. But I think Chris and Alex realize that's just part of the business, and they accept that, and, frankly, our hope is that, this, like Joe Sakic signed a big offer sheet with the New York Rangers that the Colorado Avalanche matched. We hope the Ducks matching and that Leo goes on to win a Stanley Cup like Joe Sakic did. In Colorado, Leo does that in Anaheim. That's what the hope is. Anaheim set up a Zoom call on day 6, basically, of us waiting. It was last Thursday. They were very, very professional. They're very happy to have him under contract, and everyone talked to each other, and we all decided that, we're all going to move forward from here. And, we thought it was important today to come on, and because we've had a lot of media requests, Elliotte, but just to come on and kind of give you and give everyone some color as to our thought process and kind of where we're at. But, I think everyone's moving forward, and that's what we're going to do.
Okay. I mean, it's really interesting stuff. And thank you for doing it. I have a few other questions just about there. So you said that Leo knew on July 1st that this Philly offer was on the table. Did the Flyers give you a deadline? Did they say we have to know by X?
They didn't give us a deadline per se, like on the first day, but I think we felt a sense of urgency from everyone, whether it's them or other teams that were involved here, to have closure of this. And we felt a need to have closure on this. So I think that's what led. And again, I've said that, I think there's probably 80 or 90% of players, if they saw that offer, they would have accepted it on
100%.
July 1st at noon.
Yeah.
And I think we wanted to wait out and include the Ducks in our thought, discussions and think it through. But again, this is kind of a life-changing thing for the family. And I think his dad told me, he goes, that he took charge and said, this is something we have to do. Yeah.
What's his dad's name?
Kenneth, very smart businessman. But I was talking to Kenneth this morning. He goes, yeah, I put my foot down. He goes, this was too good an offer, and I think there was pressure from them to say, let's do this, let's get this done, because I think Leo was definitely feeling it. And that's why we did. We moved and we did it. And again, happy that they accepted it, and Leo's happy, and we're all moving forward.
Did Philly tell you the offer, or did they put it, like, did you see it in an email? Like, how did you get the actual numbers when they did it?
Yeah, the actual numbers, we talked concepts on June 30th, and the actual numbers we saw July 1st.
What were your reactions? And what was Leo's reaction when you saw those numbers?
He was speechless.
The phone call with Leo when we emailed, that was probably the part of this process that stuck out most to me, was when we sent him over the numbers of Philly's offer, and it was just dead silent on the phone. And I was like, Leo, you there? And it was just, the silence was deafening.
And he just said, I'm speechless.
Yeah.
So, and they're like, we got
What
to
about
call.
you guys?
Yeah. No, I mean, we're overwhelmed a bit. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like a little bit of panic, like, what are we going to do with this thing?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I'm on year 2 here. So I looked at it. I was like,
Not panic, but you know what I mean? It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, again, that's not on, there's nothing Anaheim could have done or
Right.
we've done.
Yeah.
We got the offer and we have to process it and made that decision and we're moving forward on it. So,
Okay, so was Philly the only team that actually put an offer sheet in front of you? Like you said, there were 4 teams that were pretty serious and 2 that you really thought about.
yeah, I mean, we narrowed in, we just zeroed in on them as
Okay.
the structure and everything else pretty much right away.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was a nervous 6 days until they matched. You know, there was a lot of unknown. I think Leo addressed that in his media. But you know, I think everyone right now are just happy they matched, and Leo's happy to go back.
That's one of the things that I was curious about is how you help him through, like for 6 days there, you don't know if you're a Duck or a Flyer. And you've got to be happy to be a Duck and you've got to be happy to be a Flyer. And he's still, even though he's a really mature and talented young kid, he's still young. He's very young. So how do you help him through that? Because for 6 days, you don't know what your allegiances are.
Yeah, I mean, I think he said it in his media availability that it was a hard week, like he called it one of the worst weeks of his life, waiting to find out. You know, I mean, you don't sign that; he has to accept whatever decision was made, and you know, I just it's an uneasy time, obviously, but you know, again, I think it was an offer that he couldn't turn down, no one could turn down, and so he felt like he had to go with it, and he went with it, and again, it all worked out.
So as this was unfolding, I'm sure your phones blew up, both of you. I'm sure you had lots of reactions. So I'm wondering, what was maybe a reaction or 2 that you got, a text or a phone call or a conversation or anything that stood out most to both of you?
I mean, I think it was more of the, you know, one thing that bothered me was, you know, the social media reaction was a bit overwhelming. I think that, you know, this whole process was basically our decision in terms of going in this direction.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know Anaheim did everything they could to get him signed. And so I think the social media reaction was something that caught us a little bit. But in the end, like I said, I think everyone's happy that it's all done with.
Ryan, what about you? Did you get any texts or calls or anything that stood
Yeah,
out?
I got a lot. I got a couple texts and calls, but nothing too crazy, nothing too out of the ordinary. I mean, it was just more, right? I think we knew a historic moment was made, and it was just cool to be a part of it.
What did Chara say?
Well, he was in Japan with
Yeah.
his family, and you know, he called me up, and I think his first line was, "How come you didn't get me that?" when I played? So yeah, he was all over me on that. So, but anyway.
You know, because the thing is true, and Ryan, you just kind of mentioned it. The business is forever changed, and you know, I think one of the things that interests me most about this is that we're all in decisions in our lives that take months, and you never know if they're going to work out right or they're not going to work out right. Like this situation is over now, and the NHL is different. Like how do you guys feel? Like this was an overwhelming week, but it was also a long process where you had to wait to figure out if the choices you made turned out to be the right choices. You must feel kind of relieved in some ways that it worked out this way.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of relief that it's over with and that he's signed and we can all move on. I think you know, again, we wanted to wait. We wanted to wait because we wanted to see how the marketplace was going to develop, and then this happened, and we saw this as a pathway to kind of end the negotiation, and it was an offer again that they couldn't refuse, and And it was more of a ramp way for us to move on, all of us, by accepting the offer and moving forward. So I think for everyone, for us, it was obviously the best path forward. And it's not personal; it's just business. And I think that's for us, that's the most important thing. And we think a lot of the Ducks and how they've handled them. Again, as I've stated a few times here, it was our decision to handle it this way and to get to this, and we got to this point, and they were nothing but gentlemen and aggressively trying to sign him, and now we're here, and we're all happy to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, last question. If somebody would have told you guys when you were back preparing your PowerPoints in September that this would have ended a 5-year deal at $18 million a year with huge bonus money, what would you both have said?
No chance. No chance. No, we didn't see it coming. But that's offer sheets. It's out of our control. It's out of the team's control. It's an open marketplace. As we talked about, anyone can do this. So it's part of the CBA. Nobody did anything wrong. It's part of the CBA, and obviously we hope in the future there'll be more.
I would have said, let's wait to see how the market develops.
Yeah, he's smarter than me. Anyway, but no, thanks, Ray. This was good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys, for coming on and explaining the process. Thanks so much.
Okay, our thanks once again to the Keators for making time and all the insight provided in that great conversation there. I don't even want to try to handicap when you'll hear from us next. The last time I did that, did not anticipate we'd be back so soon. So all I will say is the next time you hear from us, we hope it will be for very good reason. Back to regularly scheduled off-season summering. You've been listening to 32 Thoughts, the podcast presented by your Canadian Toyota dealers. Keep enjoying that sunshine. So long for now.